Feldman told me a story once that.
Start that again.
Okay. So it's kind of interesting talking about this, about critical thinking and different types of thinking. Feldman told me a story once about how he said, Erlino, let me tell you, this big corporation asked me to come out and talk to their people. Big corporation. I think it was John Deere. Because it was somewhere in the Midwest. He said, it was somewhere in the Midwest, he said, and they drove and drove and drove, and there were cornfields everywhere, nothing. Just cornfields. And then suddenly out of nowhere, there was this huge complex with these huge buildings, and I was like, wow, what the heck is this? So they brought me in, and they asked me to talk about how I composed. How do you write? What are you thinking about? What do you do? And so he said he went through this whole, which his process is very intuitive. He would sit at the piano and usually and just plunk stuff out, and then write some of it down, make adjustments, whatever, spend the day there, and at the end of the day, he would ink it, so he wouldn't change it again. That was how he worked. He would change it. And how did he get ideas? They asked him a ton of questions. They treated him really well. He said they fed me and wine and dined me. I was there for a whole day. And that to me struck me as a very interesting notion, that they would take this very experimental avant-garde composer, right? And John Deere, if it was John Deere, whoever it was, this company in the Midwest, this big corporation, would have him come and tell them about his creative process, how he thinks, what he does, to try to get their people to think out of the box, so that they could come up with something that's going to be innovative and new and whatever, and obviously help them in the market or whatever, sales, whatever it might be. But I thought that was a very, very, very interesting approach, and I think it's something that is important for students to know about too. Students to know about it. How do people think? That are thinking outside the box, that are thinking critically. How do they? What do they do? And so I think that was kind of a very interesting little anecdote or story that Feldman told me, because that's the last thing I would have expected, that some major American corporation would bring someone out like Feldman or Cage or any of this, Errol Brown, this whole group of composers that were extremely radical for their time, and to talk about how do you create, how do you think, how do you do this, because you don't think of corporate America of being interested in that.
Well, what's really interesting to me, first of all, one of my best friends is a woman named Ellen Kamada, who's the managing partner of a very high-end HR organizational development company. One of her clients is John Deere, and she does executive coaching there, and she brings in a network of executive coaches, and she's flown out to that plant.
That's huge.
So I'm going to play her your descriptions to say, oh yeah,
that's got to be John Deere. Yeah. That's got to be John Deere.
But I've got a couple of degrees from Wharton, and I also took all the studio art courses I could while I was at Penn, and I was also in the graduate art program at NYU when I was working in New York. And so people used to say, first of all, people were skeptical. How can you have these two things going on simultaneously? And then at the same time, people would say, well, I guess because you have these degrees from Wharton, you're good at figuring out your deals in the art world. And I said, no, I just know when I'm getting screwed.
Right. Right.
There was an old saw that when bankers get together, they talk about art, and when artists get together, they talk about money. And so that notion of not imagining that people in the corporate world would have that kind of interest. So there's another friend of mine, is the guy Tony Schwartz, who wrote The Art of the Deal for Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
And he was literally, I saw him on TV last night talking about this whole revelation in the New York Times about Trump's finances. And he said, it's like somebody has just pulled the skin off Donald Trump, and I guarantee you that he's more outraged right now than he's ever been in his entire life. And so Tony, after he wrote The Art of the Deal, he had been a New York Times columnist, and he kind of got blackballed for selling out, for writing that book. Because he actually wrote it. Trump didn't write a word of it.
Right.
And so he wound up trying to do other things. And one of the things he did was come up with the concept of the corporate athlete. And he compared what athletes do. They train most of the time.
Right.
In order to work 10% of the time, and in businesses it's just the opposite. You work all the time
to
get very
little training. Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, because their idea of productivity is different. So
let me just see if there's anything on here that's.